The story of the leaked calls between Steve Witkoff and the Kremlin is not a frightening one. There are no secret armies, no nuclear ultimata, no dramatic breakthroughs. What we are left with instead is something rather worse for the dignity of statesmanship. It is grubby, it is subversive, it is demeaning to the office of the American presidency, insulting to Ukraine's sacrifice. There's is it in the Times or the Telegraph today? The Russian statement. There's nothing frightening. There's nothing scary about it. No, there isn't anything scary, but there is quite a lot that's squalid. Nothing about these calls suggests malice. Everything about them suggests amateurism. The United States Special Envoy sounds less like a negotiator in service of his country and more like a New York property fixer trying to impress a client. He advises Putin's closest aide on how best to flatter Donald Trump, congratulating him on Gaza, tell him he's a man of peace, nudge him with sweet talk, then watch him bend. This is statesmanship debased into a sales pitch. And that is the core of the scandal. Not that the leak reveals horror, but that it reveals squalor. Trump's defenders tell us this is what a deal maker does, yet it's quite an indictment if the United States, the principal ally of Ukraine, now conducts its diplomacy by asking the Kremlin for approval before meeting President Zelensky. The sequence says everything. Trump planned to give Ukraine long-range Tomahawk missiles capable of deterring further attacks. Putin phones first. The missiles vanish from the agenda. Mr. Trump announces that Mr. Putin didn't like the idea. This isn't negotiation. This is submission dressed up as a macho swagger. And we're told all this is in pursuit of peace. Peace is a good word. It's also a dangerous one when it's used as camouflage for rewarding aggression. Trump's blueprint, first in its 28-point form and now whittled down to 19 points under Ukrainian and European pressure, still seeks the same outcome: disarm Ukraine, hand territory to Russia, close the NATO door, leave Russia untouched in the very war it chose and still pursues, this war of aggression. This is not peace. This is humiliation of an ally. And the biggest problem is strategic blindness. The entire plan rests on the false belief that Russia holds the stronger hand, that Ukraine must adapt because Putin won't. But look at the reality. Russia fires 460 drones in a single night because it has no better means left. Its economy is held together by oil discounts and hidden Chinese loans. Its manpower is drained. The war has already broken its illusions of power. This isn't a state dictating terms from strength. It's a regime that survives on bluff and on fear, and in that sense, the leak is illuminating. It reveals that Putin has learned exactly how to handle Trump. Praise him heavily, offer the illusion of progress, give ground on paper while advancing through missile strikes on reality. Trump is flattered, Putin buys time, Russian troops continue to kill civilians in Zaporizhia and Odessa. And in the middle of all this theatre, Ukraine is instructed to be grateful. There's a genuine danger in that psychological imbalance. The negotiations have already shifted incentives. If Moscow believes the United States may abandon Kyiv, then why compromise at all? Why not press harder? Why not test the limits of Washington's patience? By hinting at US withdrawal, Trump has encouraged Russian escalation. The Kremlin doesn't fear losing anything. Ukraine fears losing everything. So we must reverse the pressure. Europe must make clear that it will keep Ukraine fighting, keep sanctions hurting, and that this conflict will end up when Moscow learns the limits of its own power. That is what real deterrence looks like, not begging Putin to make Trump look good. Now, the sanctions thing. Sanctions were a bad idea from the very beginning, but if you've got sanctions, you have to use them, and you can't relax them simply because you want to appease the aggressor. The leak confirms another truth. These efforts are not serious peace efforts. They're attempts to create headlines, to manufacture momentum, to force Ukraine into concessions that armies failed to win on the battlefield. They're not frightening in military terms, they're frightening in moral terms, because there is something deeply wrong when the world's leading democracy acts as though a corrupt autocracy should write its negotiating script, when American diplomacy confuses vanity with virtue, when the priority becomes a Nobel Prize for Trump rather than the just peace for Ukraine. The Kremlin claims there's nothing scary in the leaks. No. In one sense, they're absolutely right. There is nothing scary here, only shabby. Only back-channel whispers, only the spectacle of a president who wants applause more than principles. But Europe and Ukraine should be vigilant, for these whispers are an attempt to shape a settlement that leaves Russia rewarded, that leaves Ukraine vulnerable, that leaves the free world diminished. Peace is not the absence of war, it's the presence of justice. And until Russia accepts that truth, negotiations based on illusion will produce nothing but more violence. And phone calls that flatter a dictator will only feed his belief that he can wait us out and seize more than he's earned. The leak matters because it shows how small the American administration is thinking and how small it actually is, how unserious their approach has become, and how easily dangerous errors are born out of vanity. If President Trump and his cohorts want to learn something about vanity, they'd be well advised to come over to the UK during Christmas and watch Mother Goose. Ukraine deserves better than a peace deal designed to stoke egos. The democratic world deserves better than a negotiation shaped in Moscow, and the office of the American presidency deserves better than to be treated like a theatrical role in someone else's drama. The real test of leadership is not whether Putin calls you a man of peace, it's whether the peace you pursue protects the innocent and restrains the aggressor. On that measure, these talks fall far short of history's demands.